Hello, so I am making a mushroom hat for class, and my plan is to make a sun hat based off of this mushroom that kind of looks like it's melting, and I'm starting with just cutting out the basic shape out of cardboard. So to make the part of the hat that sits on top of my head, I cut out a strip of cardboard that wraps around my head, and then I cut two other strips that crisscross over each other and are connected to the band that goes around my head. For the rest of the hat, I just cut out a giant circle, and using the top part of the hat that I made, I traced it out to cut the inner circle of the hat, and this is going to be like the part of the sun hat that blocks out the sun. So for the main structure of the hat, I mainly just use tape to secure all the pieces. So I used foam for all the smaller details of the hat, mainly because I like making video game weapons out of foam and I have a lot of scraps. And also I wanted to make this hat out of materials that I already had at home. And so I have a lot of scraps, so it just made sense to use foam. So off camera, over the weekend, I did paint the hat, but 2 days before the project was due, I decided to change my approach to the entire project. I hate it. So here I'm deconstructing the hat because I wanted to keep the top of the hat and just scrap the rim of the hat. So yeah, here's just me deconstructing it. And also I don't know why I'm using my keyboard as a ruler. Do not ask. to make the overall hat have a softer structure, I decided to weave the hat out of strips of paper bags that I had laying around. I've never done this before, but in my textiles class, we did learn about how people weave their textiles, and so I decided that I would give it a try. What I basically did was just cut out strips of the paper bags and then twisted them. Some of them are short to make like the weft threads in weaving, and then I just made a very long strip as the warp threads. So here I'm gluing the shorter twisted paper pieces onto the main cardboard band that will go around my head. This part was actually pretty fun. Like, weaving the rim of the hat was the most fun, in my opinion, in making this hat. Because surprisingly, when you start weaving, the structure automatically goes outwards into the correct shape I needed, which was very nice. So this was how the hat was looking. And this was also when I realized that the warp threads were going to be too short for the width I wanted. And so to extend pieces, I would just tape two pieces together and then twist them together. So at this point, I was actually happy with the width that the hat is. Clearly, you can tell on my face that I am very happy. So to secure the warp threads, I just cut them and then I folded them over the rim or over the weft thread and just hot glued it. This is what I have so far. I don't like the top, so I'm gonna weave the top as well. So I made the top of the hat the same way I did the rim, where I deconstructed the top and then I cut out strips of paper bag, twisted them, and then hot glued them. Though the top of the hat was significantly harder weaving than the rim. I guess it's because I couldn't hold the hat in a way where the structure would go the way I want easily. Because for the top of the hat, I wanted to weave it into a dome, which I struggled with because I really did not know how to weave it. Like, I tried progressively pulling the weft thread tighter and tighter so it would like shrink down near the top. But when I couldn't figure it out, I just hot glued all the pieces into one point on top of the hat. So this was the hat after I finished weaving both the rim and the top of the hat. And honestly, if I wasn't going to make this hat a mushroom hat, I would have left it like this, because I actually think it looks really cute. So I wanted to have like these little black pointy spikes around the rim of the hat. And these were actually really difficult for me to cut out for some reason, and so I decided to just recycle them from the old one. So this is a mushroom hat, but I always think of mushrooms to be kind of fluffy, and so I had a bag of cotton balls lying around, so I decided to just put it all over the hat before I put like the little petals on it. So I have never personally colored cotton balls before, and so I decided to do small experiments with how to color the cotton balls. This was actually surprisingly hard and took me a lot longer than I thought it would take me. So yeah, the next part is just me experimenting with how to color the cotton balls. So to make like the dye, I added water, black and blue paint into a cup, and I just applied it with a paintbrush. This was my first attempt, and as you can see, it doesn't look great. And then I filled up one of my watercolor paintbrushes with water and just started to add water, which helped with making an ombre, which is what I wanted, because the water mixed in with the paint very well. I usually paint with watercolors, and I, now thinking back on it, realized it might have looked a lot better if I just straight up used my watercolor paints. I also tried wetting the cotton in advance to see if that also helped the paint spread out. So in the end, I concluded that putting the dye down and then adding water made the best gradient. Though, as you will see later, that only really works if the cotton is like well padded together, which the cotton on my hat is clearly not. I also kind of wish I just based my hat off of a cotton plant, because I like the hat the way it is right here than what it looks like in the end.
Nothing happened.
So after I realized my cotton on my hat was not tightly padded together enough, I tried needle felting the cotton balls, which it obviously didn't work because needle felting felt, they're not cotton balls. I also, particles from the cotton balls got everywhere, and so I had to put on a mask. But I did try one last technique, which was the technique I went with, mainly because at this point I kind of just gave up. But as you can see, I'm mixing the cotton ball with paint, so I'm just pulling the cotton ball apart after I put paint on it. It looks questionable, and it was also a pain to dry, but I think it looked okay in the end. Oh yeah, and I did test out to see if it would make an ombre, which it did, surprisingly. But in order to make the ombre, I did have to mix cotton in 3 different shades of my dye, which did not take me as long as I thought it would. And it was also surprisingly fun, though my fingertips are still sort of tinted blue, which is fun. And so since the cotton was still slightly damp, and also I needed to be able to pull the cotton up when I added the petals, I decided to just lay it down onto the existing hat. And also to make the darkest part of the hat, I just straight up dabbed dye onto it. And so I did all of that 2 days before it was due, but I finished it the day before it was due, which honestly, for design projects, I think that's normal. I think. Big question mark.
So this is what the hat looks like currently. The paint dried in a very interesting way, where it's like the cotton's colored, but you see like streaks and outlines of where the cotton was pulled apart. Yeah, it's interesting.
So I cut out tiny like petals from the foam. I did this in class, so I didn't film it. But I just sewed the end to the top of the hat. And this is me digging for the needle because of how many layers the top is. So for the little petal things, I decided to coil them around the hat. I painted the back of all of them because I figured it would be hard to paint them once they were on the hat. And I connected them all with the needle and thread. So the idea for coiling them is from Oaxacan pottery. So I work at a jewelry store that sells Oaxacan pots. And so I vaguely remember my boss being like, they're made by coiling clay. I have never needed to talk about pots to a customer, so I don't know if I remembered incorrectly or not, but I decided to coil these petal things on the hat. So I realized I should have painted both sides of these little petal things before I put them on the hat. Because out of the entirety of me making this hat, painting the petals took me the longest. It was also quite hard because they're curled, and so I didn't really know how to paint them properly. Like, you can't tell on camera in the end, but if you look at it in person, one layer of the petals, you can still see the color underneath the white paint, because I got tired, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm not very proud of how this project came out, but it is what it is. I also had trouble keeping the layers and strands in place, mainly because I had to keep pulling them and tugging them as I painted, which was also very annoying and frustrating. So 10/10 would not recommend. So to hide the sharp and weirdly shaped tops of each petal, I added cotton balls in between the layers, just to like give it more dimension and also to make it look cleaner. Though my original plan was to like make a very tight coil on top, but I changed my mind and just piled cotton balls on top of the top and curled one of my leftover pieces into like a little sprout coming out of the top, which I thought was cute. And this is also what it looks like. is what the hat looks like after I start adding colored pieces to fix the ombre that is supposed to be there, but not gonna lie, at this point I'm tired. I did not sleep very much the past 2 days of when I'm making this video and when I'm making that hat. So this do be a very messy project. I'm sorry. So this is what the hat looks like. I'm actually surprised that it does look like a mushroom. But I don't know if it's because I know it's a mushroom that it looks like a mushroom. But it didn't turn out as bad as I thought it would. So I'm happy with the project, but I'm not the proudest about this project.
This is the final step. Wow. Nice.